Welcome to another edition of Santana Says, where we talk about everything from roadblocks to relationships and everything in between, as well as the overall journey of life. I am super excited as always to bring you another edition of the show and just happy that you are here spending time today to dive into another topic and to be able to enjoy this journey and explore this journey of life together. As a recap, I wanted to be able to let you know that if you are here, this is actually the fourth episode that we have done together so far. And so the first one, I actually did give a chance to introduce myself a bit, who I was, and a little bit about me, since, this is a new venture that I'm taking on. The second episode, I dived deeply into domestic violence. And so that was an opportunity for us to not only learn more about that, but for you to hear about my personal experience with it. So if you want to be able to take a deeper dive into that, you can feel free to, review that episode, because that is where we took a deeper dive into that. But what we also talked about was how you can overcome all of that. And so you don't have to be just the products of your experiences, including one of that kind. And I especially was happy to talk about that because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and just because domestic violence has absolutely plagued, me as well as my family, and so it was definitely a topic that I was happy to discuss. But on the third episode, we actually brought in one of my very closest friends, Pierre Hurd, who is the CEO of Millennial Mommying, and she was able to tell us also about her own journey, accomplishments she's made, and the platform that she has now created to help others. She herself has also been through some different experiences, but she especially turned all of that around and has made something positive for others. And so I was just very happy for her to be able to come in and talk more about that. With all of that being said, the holidays are upon us. And so holidays can be a difficult time for some. It can absolutely be a very joyous time. A lot of us look forward to it. We get excited. We love, when it comes to, for those of us who do celebrate Christmas, like the gift giving, for those of us who do celebrate Thanksgiving, like the great food that we're able to share with others as well. But I know that for some of us, holidays can be a triggering time, and so it can also be a very sad time. It might remind us of family members that are no longer with us. It might remind us of some moments that we're not as fond of, and all of those things. And it just can be, a different experience depending on where we're at. And so not only do I want to start off by acknowledging that first and foremost, and letting people know that, holidays can be problematic, or they can be interesting to navigate and difficult to navigate, or they can be, like I said, something quite exciting. I also think it's a great time to talk about gratitude. And so especially with Thanksgiving, for some of us, it's the cornerstone is the food, and like that's the main focus, and that's like the main thing that we worrying about, and like how many plates we can get. For some of us too, it's a good time for reflection, to be honest, especially with the end of the year approaching, and with us, having that new year on the horizon, really giving us a chance to like reflect and see how, what we've done, like what progress we made, and what progress is still like in front of us as well, that we can like still make in the future also. I especially want to take this time to talk about the power though that comes behind gratitude. So I feel that that's not always something that I did myself. I feel like I've heard a lot of people say, oh, you should be more grateful. And, when you reflect on gratitude or take time to really use that in your life, it can really help you. I had never really seen that in action until I started using it intentionally. So I don't mean like thinking about gratitude like on a, visiting basis, or that like sometimes you're like thinking about when you're grateful, or using a time like Thanksgiving to think about what you're grateful for and all of that. I mean actually making it a part of your life. And so what I've been working on intentionally myself is really just, how can I remember what I'm grateful for every day? How can I use that to then influence my actions and really be, humble myself, but also really appreciate what's around me. And so when you start to open up that opportunity, what I've noticed is it really helps me to look at things differently, because there's already a lot of pressures that we have in our life. There's already a lot of things that we need to show up for and act for and perform for, essentially. And so that takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot of energy from us. It definitely asks a lot of us, and it's something that we have to continually maintain as well. And so that definitely, a lot of that comes with all of those requirements. But I would definitely say that gratitude has opened up a lot for me. So In my case, especially, I'm just grateful for a lot of the lessons. So, as I mentioned, I definitely had the domestic violence, help happen to me in my life, and I've absolutely seen it happen to others. And it's an interesting thing to say, right? That I'm about to allow myself to say that I'm actually grateful. Now, am I saying that I'm grateful for the abuse itself? Nah, absolutely not. I mean, I would have loved to have avoided that part of it, but am I grateful for the experience that I gained from it? Absolutely. I had to really accept a lot of not harmful truths, but really just like difficult truths about myself when I looked back at that relationship. That would definitely be where I would say the gratitude started. And so it was really just, instead of looking at that situation with bitterness, which I did for a long time, I really did. A long time, I blamed myself for the situation. I resented the fact that I was in that situation. And really, I just felt like, why? And being a believer in God, like, why would God allow me to be in a situation like that? Like, why? With all the good things that I do, because I'm like working at the rape crisis center, as I told y'all in the past. I'm like helping people out on a regular basis. I was volunteering at church. I'm like, how is it that I'm the person that has to deal with this? But I had to really think about, like, okay, but what choices led me to get in that situation? Like really take a step away from myself and really get over myself. So gratitude has allowed me, and humility really, to be able to see that sometimes we do get in our own way, and it's not an easy thing to admit, but it absolutely does put us in these predicaments sometimes. And I think it's easier to put the blame on something else or someone else. But, and sure, there are other people that might contribute, and there might be other factors that contribute, but you yourself are very much more in control of your life than I think we give ourselves credit for. And that's another thing that I did not accept. I felt that for a long time, I felt that my life was not something I could control. I felt that it was something that, things just happen and I just need to react to them. I would make sure that I reacted with a very solution oriented mindset. Like, I was always big on, like, okay, if a problem comes up, what are we going to do to fix it? I'm saying? I'm not trying to ruminate on this. I'm not trying to live here in this place. I want to figure out how to get past it. And so what are we going to do? And especially with kids, like having kids, I'm like, okay, no, I don't have time for like hiccups. I need to make sure they're good. We're good. My household is good. I don't have time to be sitting around like trying to, ruminate on that. And I would get very like triggered by people who, would constantly choose to complain more about things. Like, that was never something that I liked. Like hearing people just always like looking at things from that kind of negative mindset instead of like jumping to that. But in the process, I was very reactionary. Like, I didn't realize that I'm always reacting. I'm reacting to things. I'm putting out fires, but I'm not even seeing how the fires are starting. Like, I'm not even realizing how I'm literally going to pick up the wood. I'm putting it into the fire pit and I'm making the fire myself instead of looking at it from a different place. And so gratitude definitely helped me realize that there's a lot that you can be grateful for, and there's a lot of growth that can come behind that, because definitely the relationship I was in helped me grow in a lot of ways. It absolutely helped me realize how my self-esteem was in a place, it was in such a low place that obviously I had not realized that I thought that this was all I deserved and could accept, and that life couldn't possibly be any better than this. That was a painful truth I had to realize. A second truth was that attention. Because of the gaps in attention that I had had in my life as a child, as mentioned, like as a growing adult before, I was definitely trying to address that gap. And so I wasn't doing it in the most healthy way. I just was trying to do it in a way that allowed me to get whatever attention I could seek. And it wasn't just in that relationship. There were other relationships after that where I realized, was I really going into it because I'm trying to like really see this person for who they are and just, and like what we can build? Or do I just like how I feel when I'm with this person? And that's what I was doing. So for a lot of times, especially after that abusive relationship, I didn't immediately come out of that relationship healed and like, wow, I really know what I want out of life now. And I'm going to be able to get a healthy relationship. Not really. Absolutely not. If anything, I'm still figuring that out. And so I had to realize instead that I needed to definitely put those things aside and really start looking at things from a better perspective, because it's going to really shut me out from a lot of things. And I'm going to be the person blocking my own blessings because I don't see how I'm creating my own pitfalls. And so for sure, the relationship itself helped me to realize that. It helped me to realize, like I said, where my self-esteem was. what I was willing to accept, and also what really was the definition of healthy. So in that relationship, it certainly was not a healthy one, but I wasn't aware of how unaware I was of what healthy is. And I still think that's another definition that I love to continue to develop. Like, what exactly is healthy? What does healthy mean for us? How does healthy help us grow as individuals? And what should we be looking for when we're looking for healthy things, and how does that really affect all the facets of our life? Because it really does. I mean, the thoughts that we continue to cultivate on a regular basis absolutely affect our actions. The kind of ways that we look at things affect our behaviors. Our behaviors are definitely influence our choices. Like, it's all linked. And so I've been realizing that now I have an incredible thirst for healthy. I want to learn as much as I can about what it means to be healthy. I want to do whatever I can to be doing things that are healthy. And that's just where I want to be. Like, I definitely think that before, that wasn't where my focus was. One, because I didn't know what on earth healthy was. So I can't look for something that I don't even know what it is. But also, I had never seen it either. And so because I hadn't seen it, I had literally no exposure to it. There was no thirst. No thirst had been awakened for something like that when it was something I hadn't even had any interaction with. Absolutely. So with all of those things, I definitely, had to realize all of that. But also, I would definitely say kids. So now that I, as a mother, and I realize that I might be speaking to some people who are also fellow parents, and I might be speaking to people that might be considering parenthood or might not be there, or I know there are some people that unfortunately may be trying to have children, and that might not necessarily, it might not have been an easy process. I definitely want to shout out every single one of those individuals, all of you who may be listening and may be thinking about that, because I know that that's also something that we don't always think about. So that's why I wanted to start off by saying that, because, so as a parent, I would definitely say that that's not something I always thought about. I actually had a friend at work who had been trying to conceive for years. And meanwhile, like, I think that same morning, I had literally just had one of the most difficult mornings with my children. Like, I was trying to, like, get them out the door. I'm trying to get them dressed, get them to school on time. And, like, then I get to work and I hear this woman outpouring how she's been trying to have a kid forever. And it hasn't been in the cards. Her and her husband have been trying everything, like spending thousands of dollars on procedures, and they still hadn't been able to have a kid. And I'm over here complaining. Like, I'm literally like, well, maybe you could take one of mine, because I'm over here having like this difficult time. But what I really had to do was realize, like, wow, I'm finding something difficult and complaining about something that somebody like wishes they could have and have not been able to get, like, up until this moment. And so the childhood thing, y'all, or not the childhood, the parenthood thing has absolutely shaped my life in so many ways. I know I had mentioned prior to that, in my case, my kids actually saved my life. And I really think that is no further from the truth, because they not only help me look at life from different perspectives, but literally, knowing the path that I was on and how I told y'all and how I was not looking for healthy things, I don't think there was no reason why I would have continued to look for healthy had it not been for them. They gave me like literally a new purpose. They literally gave me like help life give new meaning, and they really helped me realize, like, I really got to make sure I do what I can to be healthy, not only for myself, but for them, because they really are looking up to me. And if I'm not here, who is going to be there for them? And where are they going to get their own definition of healthy? Nobody else is necessarily providing that to them, especially like from my own family, but also given the experiences that they've been having. So that was another one where I really had to look at it from a perspective of gratitude and really just being grateful for my children and just seeing them. And also because even I have 3 of them, so there's definitely like a whole, myriad of personalities. So that comes with that. And as I told y'all, they're girls. So yes, prayers are definitely welcome, because they are emotional and they have a lot that's going on. But I definitely have learned how grateful I am for them, to have them, and the constant lessons that they give me every day. So an interesting thing that I also have alluded to on the show, but want to dive deeper into, is the conversations I have with my children. So I have a lot of restorative conversations with my children because they notice a lot. And so I know that for a long time I did think, like many others, that I need to shield them. That's actually more of my job. So as mama bear, I need to make sure that I cover these babies. I need to make sure that they are protected at all times and that they feel safe. I didn't realize though, by not talking about certain topics, they don't feel safe, because they're like, wow, I live with this person every day, yet I'm not able to talk about some of the things that I really want to be able to talk about. I actually have a daughter who's in elementary school who's already been looking at, has already been having identity issues. I didn't think you could come up with identity issues in fourth grade, but apparently so. Apparently they're talking about a lot more things in school now than I ever realized and had never known that would be explored. I also had to realize too that some of the drama they're experiencing, that for me, I didn't even experience until maybe high school or college. They're talking about some of those things now. They're also already having to prove themselves now. They're also facing a lot more pressures now, and they just see a lot more. They have YouTube, and I would definitely say that for me, YouTube was not a world that I had explored when I was a child. And even as a teenager, I remember having I could throw it back to MySpace. MySpace was mine. I remember Tagged. I remember all these social media pages, but that were vastly different. And YouTube was maybe starting to come around, but it certainly wasn't like a career. It was literally people could do it full time now. They're literally living there. They're able to do all these things. And it's something that it's one of the careers on my child's list. I know that if I would have asked that 10 years ago, YouTube creator or digital creator would not be on there. But now, that is the world we're in. And so I've been having to, pivot and learn about that and realize that with that, although there's a lot of good, of course, they learn so many things. They know more things than I do, in essence, but there's just a lot of things that they're exposed to negatively. And I already had my daughter also in fourth grade telling me she also wasn't sure if she looked the right way. She was telling me that she had body image issues. I was like, first of all, again, fourth grade. So I'm like, let me take a step, because why are you already thinking that you don't look the way you need to, or that she actually thought that her weight was a problem. And I will tell y'all, if you my children are actually they're tiny, because I'm already a very short person, and their father their other parent is not necessarily the tallest person in the world either. So they're already on the smaller side, but also they're definitely small in weight. So I'm like, wow, for her to already be having these distorted visions of herself is just incredible to me. And then it just helped me realize how many other battles is she already facing that sometimes I don't even realize, because we don't always give space to that. And because I thought, again, as a protector, that really the way to protect you is to just, guard you and keep you and cover you, but not necessarily to explore all of these issues with you. Once I open up that door, she has absolutely been outpouring. And so we actually build that in. So we do it. We definitely do it at the dinner table sometimes if it's there. We do it before bed, but we also do it just, at different times, like on the weekend when we're able to have more times with one another. And what I also love to do with them now is have these circles where they're able to express their opinions about one another. Positive ones, uplifting. But sometimes it's also, they will criticize. It's also a time for them to say, if someone did something to them that actually did trigger them, or if they got in an argument and they wanted to be able to voice their side. I love to give space for that. I like to have my own circle with them where they'll actually go in turns. You say something about the next person says something else. Sometimes we also offer affirmations to each other during this space, but it's really just this overall opportunity to really explore things that are happening. And had I not really looked and been grateful for what it is to be a parent, but also grateful for all of the lessons that they're able to give me and all of the knowledge that they really have, I don't think I would have even figured that there was value in that. I don't know that I would have even carved out time for that, because without looking at it from that way. Because I think before that, it gets so easy, especially before the pandemic, when we were really even easier. And even though we're still in the midst of some of a pandemic now, it just looks different. But definitely I feel like life can come at us really fast. And so a lot of times we're doing a lot of different activities. There's a lot of things that pulls us away from our household. And I don't think we realize that sometimes we need to just pause and just, give ourselves that time to reflect. I think a lot of times we make a lot more, it's easier to make excuses for it, because I have. And I've said okay, but ain't nobody got time. I don't have time right now with all the things that I have going on in my day, to then sit back and reflect on my day. Why would I do that? I'm trying to just get ready for the next day and the next thing that I need to tackle, and whatever that next responsibility or checklist that I have on my list. And so I get that, but I've really been learning that operating from that mindset and giving that time, like you're not gonna have time if you don't carve it out. It really does lead to this greater effect when you do that. And so I've also been trying to help them realize what they're grateful for and have them articulate what kind of strengths they have. And so I realized too that for children, that isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do. If you really ask a child, well, tell me like what you're good at. Like, what are some of your strong points? A lot of them really struggle with that. I've even seen it on the high school side because I also work at a high school full time, and that is it's incredibly fascinating to me that that's the case, but also pretty sad, like, and disheartening that when I ask them, like, well, can you like tell me, what are some good things that you do? Or like they might be able to tell me careers, like, oh yeah, I'm interested in doing this. This is how I want to make my money. But when I really ask them to give me a list of like what they do well and all of those things, yeah, they can't necessarily do it. And so I think we need to be able to take that time to pour into, our youth for sure, and anyone that we have that influence in. So I know that I also mentioned that for some of us, children, we might not have our own specific children, but we definitely might have influence on others. I definitely think one of the best influences I had growing up were like my uncles and cousins and aunts. Like it wasn't always just my own parents, it was also the influence I got from my village and, from my community members. And I just loved, those chances I had to interact with them and those conversations I had. And sometimes I got the chance to tell them things that I did not tell my parents because, your parents are judgy. Parents are judgy, and parents have the ability to punish us. So I wasn't always trying to tell my mom everything because I'm like, no, because she can take stuff away from me. And I'm not trying to, do that. I would love to explore things with her, but I don't want to know that she's going to like then take TV away for a week or something because she feels like I'm seeing too much or doing too much. So it was always great to be able to have those other outlets. And that's actually something, even though I have all these conversations with my children and really have challenged myself to realize how grateful I am for them and the things that I'm able to teach them, but the things that they're also able to teach me. I actually have individuals set up for my children as well that they can go to. And I mean, we have our set rules. Like, you know what? If there are things you want to talk to these people about that you don't necessarily want to tell me, that's okay. Unless it's dangerous, you know what I'm saying? If they thinking about some crazy things, I definitely said, all right, confidential got to be broken because I need to be able to step in. But if it's not that and they're just exploring things and they just want to be able to have somebody to confide in, I have currently, like, each one of my children actually has a person, like a set person that they like to. They have, of course, countless other friends, but they absolutely have these other people that they're able to have conversations with. And our guest on the last episode, as I mentioned, Pierre Hurd, she's actually one of them. So like my middle child actually had a whole day where she was able to go out with her. And so they had their own little date time. They like went out, they went journaling, they talked. She even, stayed over with her, over at her house. And it was just so like incredible to me that they could already have that, something that I did not find until I was older. I actually had a teacher though, in my case, who, the one I mentioned first episode, who had seen me and had definitely noticed me. We had sometimes we were, and but I sought that person out and they found me. I definitely had never, unfortunately, had somebody like presented to me by my parent or somebody that like through, my parents' network that I was able to connect with on that level, but we definitely found each other at school for sure. And like ever since then, we were able to cultivate our relationship, and she also is one of the people that now one of my daughters also goes to. So like they each have, like I said, their own set individual, and I just love that they can have that. They're able to form that relationship and just really be their authentic selves. How many times are we not able to do that? How many times do we feel like we have to, cover up who we are and we can't show up as just us, and that we have to, act almost as someone else. And I just feel like I can't talk enough about how I don't want to be able to do that. A lot of times I did that, and I really want to and I didn't realize how, limiting that was, but also just like what an incredible disservice I was doing to myself by feeling like I had to act like someone else or that I couldn't reveal certain things. Even when I'm talking to you all about on these episodes, these are things that for some, I know that some people take things like this that happen to them to the grave. They don't like to reveal vulnerabilities or like reveal that things have happened to them. It's been the most freeing thing for me to actually come forward on these things, to have these open and honest conversations. It's been definitely the best thing, and it's helped me to meet other people who also have been on similar journeys, who have also been through things and overcome things. And it's all, now that I've done that and I've opened that door, it's like all I want to do, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, well, how else can I do that? Like, how else can I unlock new levels of healing? How else can I unlock new capabilities of being able of forgiveness and really just character development. Because the other thing I had to come to realize, and I say this a lot with my children, is that just because I'm older than you definitely doesn't mean that I've like stopped learning, that I've stopped growing, and that there isn't more to be able to learn. And I, even in future relationships, I want to be able to be with an individual who also shares that sentiment, and much like myself, is constantly wanting to continue developing. I don't ever want to get to a place where I feel like I'm done with whatever my development is, and that I can continue to, do more and impact more people in the process. So I definitely just appreciate having that. And like I said, all the different people that are in my life. What I also appreciate and have learned that I'm super grateful for is definitely friendships. And so, but those solid friendships, y'all, like those friendships with people that it's not just the time either. It's not, because I've met some people in the last couple of years that have shown up in ways that people I've known my entire life have not. And so I also really love having friends who call me out on my BS, and so I love that, they could tell me when I'm wrong. And sometimes that's my conversation. It's not always like, hey girl, let me tell you what happened, or like, oh, something happened at work today, I had to call you. Sometimes it's that, but sometimes it's also like, hey, I just did something and I really want to know your side on whether I handled this the right way. Like, do you think I handled it the right way, or do you think I probably could have responded differently? And honestly, those have been like the best conversations I've had, and I just am so grateful that I have people in my life that do that. And that's all I ever want to have. I don't want people who just tell me what I want to hear, and like, how many times do we have that? Or how many times have we been that for someone else? We're like, okay, well, we'll just, I could tell they feeling a little bit down right now, so I'm gonna just tell them what they want to hear and, make them feel better in that moment. But is it really helping them feel better, when they still might have that problem later on, when they really are seeking? Now, I know that for some people, we also got to meet people where they are. And sometimes a person might not be ready for that change. They might not be in a place where they want to grow, you know what I mean, or escape something. And when I talked about domestic violence, like I said, we also might feel the opposite, right? Where we're like, dang, I've been telling her to leave that relationship, or telling him or telling them to leave that relationship for how long? Like, I've been trying to tell them for years and they just have not listened. We also have to respect people and where they're at in their process. So there are some individuals who may not be there and they might not be ready to receive that kind of advice and be ready to make that change. But for others, they are. And when they are ready for that change and we don't, instead of like really giving them that opportunity to grow and further develop in that situation, and instead we tell them some kind of like surfacey advice, like, oh no, yeah, you handled that well, or like, there doesn't seem like anything right for me, or like anything wrong to me that you did in that situation. We're not necessarily helping them to see how they could better it. And I think all the time, if there's anybody out there that makes it seem like, oh well, I don't really need that because I'm on the right path and I don't really mess up. Obviously we know that is not true. We mess up all the time, like and it's okay to do that. I feel like, I don't know why we sometimes do that, where we make it seem like it's not okay to make mistakes, and like that we need to beat ourselves up when we make that mistake, instead of being grateful for the lesson that it gives us. Like, a lot of mistakes are lessons in disguise, if we let them, if we really let them be that. But if we look at them as just failures, then obviously that's all we're going to ever see them as. I mean, I could have done that. Like, in my relationship, I could have easily been like, all right, well, that was clearly a failure. Because, like, I mean, I literally invited all my, family to, like, this person met a lot of my family members, was intertwined with everything. We started a life together. And now, look, now I have nothing to show for it. I could have looked at it that way and been like, well, obviously I must not know much about relationships if I allow myself to get in a relationship like this, or allow myself to get in a situation like this. But it's like, opposite. We're all trying to figure it out. And when we're in relationships, even with friendships, we're constantly learning new things in the process about other people and about ourselves. And so a lot of times too, relationships do that for us. They help us realize like how we are. My kids have helped me learn a lot about myself. So things that I did not know, they helped me realize it. And so they've helped me realize that, my temperament. They've helped me realize where sometimes I am very impatient. They've helped me realize a lot of shortcomings that I definitely needed to work on, not just for them, but for me. Because how do I really want to live my life stressed all of the time? And so that's also what I would say is the power of gratitude, is how it can really free you up when you look at things from a grateful perspective. And also just, it'll make you, to be honest, if you challenge yourself to think about like every day, maybe like three things that you're grateful for. If you do that every single day, your perspective really is going to change. I mean, you can't help but change when you start to really challenge yourself to think about what you're grateful for. But I think what's going to be interesting is, and it is a challenge I'm putting out there, if you want to try it, is that it's going to be interesting to see the shift in what you're grateful for. I feel like at first it's probably going to be easy. We'll probably say big things like what I just said, kids, and, I'm grateful for my house, and I'm grateful for, employment, right? For having a job. Absolutely, because it's hard times out here, and there's some people that don't have a job. So, yep, we should definitely put that on the list. But I think it's going to be interesting to, like, let's say if you're a week in and you're still trying to think about 3 things that you're grateful for every day, you're going to start to have to challenge yourself to notice little things. It's not the big things. What if it's the fact that, like, you even have a car to drive, that car is in operating condition. The fact that, like, on your way home, you saw this, like, beautiful garden. It's currently fall. Like, the fact that the leaves are changing and it just brings this wonderful atmosphere. I mean, how many times are we, maybe not always when it's cold, I know some people may not like that, but how many times do we just go outside and like actually breathe in fresh air? The things that we like make fun of people sometimes for doing, but like it's just incredible joy that stuff can bring. And how it can really change and just give you that different mindset, because sometimes we need to change our environment in order to be able to give ourselves a new mindset and a new perspective, because sometimes we're always stuck in that same environment. Maybe it's stressful at work, maybe it's like stressful at home, and we're like constantly going back to that every day. So for then at the end of the day to be like, oh, what are we grateful for? It's gonna be hard to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because you're constantly in these places where you're always stressed, and all you focus on is that stress, and like maybe how to alleviate it somewhat, or you turn to other things to help you alleviate that stress that really aren't serving you. It might be certain foods that you eat. It might be, certain vices that you take up. It might be certain things that you are putting in your body, whether that might, whatever that might be. But it's just sometimes just helping us, giving ourselves that opportunity to be like, but wow, I mean, I am still here. I do still have life. I absolutely have purpose. I have people who love me. How can I really, and then I think what would be the great thing is that not only realizing what we're grateful for on a regular basis, but then how can we show gratitude, and that's something I'm working on too. I'm like, what, there are a lot of things I'm grateful for. Did I tell that person how much I appreciate them? Did I actually hit them up and say, what, like that conversation last week really did something to me. Like I really needed that. You really gave me validation at a time where I was really like doubting myself. And I'm just like so grateful that you helped me out with that. It may sound weird to say that. I think sometimes these things do not seem like common practice, or we do that thing where we're like, well, no, that person knows, like they know I appreciate them. And we already have that common bond, but it's like, do they? Or like, and even if they do, like you can't let it be known so that you can continue, so that person can really understand the appreciation. But I think what we don't always think about is that when we show gratitude to others, it isn't necessarily just for them. We end up doing a lot for ourselves in the process. When we really take on a grateful mindset, where it's really a transformational process for us, because it allows us to look at the world differently, and really to see the world as a gift. And so I think too, that's what can be hard when life comes at you as fast as it does, as stressful as it does, and with as many pressures. It is sometimes can be impossible to see life for the gift that it is and for what we can really get out of it. And so I just think that I want to see more of us, and and myself included, like I'm not telling you these things because these aren't things that I'm not working on, but that how we can absolutely grow in that, and continue to develop from that further, and really see how we can be more grateful to others, and be able to show that gratitude, definitely more frequently and more fully. And I think too, I just want to see a lot of hearts be softened, because I think a lot of hearts have been hardened, by situations that have happened in life. And like I said, if there are anyone that is listening that, has survived anything traumatic or anything, and maybe not even just traumatic, right, but anything difficult, then, I mean, you should definitely be grateful for that, right, that you were even able to get brought through that, and that there was definitely a purpose behind that. For you to still be here living to tell the story means that there's clearly more that you need to get done. You know what I mean? And so, like, and if there's things about your life that maybe you do feel like are too mundane, and you're like, oh, but it's just so hard because I keep doing the same thing every day and I feel like it's never going to change. Why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we feel like that's all it's got to be? You know what I'm saying? And that it can be better. It could be better. It could be greater. It could be the most amazing thing you've ever experienced if you try, and if you give yourself that permission. And so I think too many times we do not give ourselves permission for things. We feel like that's beyond, I can't do that right now. Like I can't afford that. So I'm not, instead of putting in a plan for like saving up for it or cutting out certain things, we just immediately assume that, nope, it's not within our capability. Or like, given a relationship, nope, this is just how it is. This is how that person is. This is how I am. That's just how it's gonna be. With my kids, that's it. We've kind of like reached our place. Like, this is just that difficult time. That's all it's gotta be. I can't really make that any better. I mean, I got work responsibilities. What you want me to do? Like tell my boss to change up my job completely? Those aren't the things that I'm saying, but I think it's definitely giving yourself permission to look at it from a different perspective, to appreciate, it from a different lens, and to be able to let yourself know that yes, your life can be everything that you want it to be and more, but again, only if you're willing to take that on for yourself. And so, as always, I think that it definitely takes, certain help to be able to do that and having the right people in your life. But I think that with that, it absolutely can happen. And so, as I mentioned, I'm definitely grateful for the children that I have. Absolutely. I'm definitely grateful for the children that I'm able to impact at my job. I love that with every job that I've had, I've been able to have at least some youth that I've been able to help. I'm absolutely grateful for my circle, which has changed a lot over the years. I had some friends that I thought I was going to ride, out into the sunset with, and nope, come to find out those were not the people for me. And, as I've developed as a person, I've got new friends, and all of that is okay. And I'm also grateful for the changing relationship that I'm having with my family. And so as I mentioned to you all, a lot of these things that I have shared with you have absolutely impacted where I'm at with my family. At one point I looked at them very negatively, and then there have been other moments where, because of my gratitude and the humility that I'm trying to take on, I have had different conversations with that. If you approach a conversation, from a grateful perspective and more like, in that way, it has definitely allowed a lot of those other things to subside, and it has helped me to look at things very differently and to have deeper conversations and really let people know not only about the love I have for them, but because of that love, what I would love to see happen for them. And so I've given myself permission to have conversations that I would never have approached in years past. And so that's something that I'm also grateful for. But I'm also just grateful for, all of these new beginnings, any new opportunity to continue to, grow further and, do more things. And honestly, as always, I'm grateful for you today and, and every day that we have a chance. And now that, I have this, new platform to be able to connect with others. And as always, I hope, now that it's here, that if it can absolutely serve as any benefit to you, or if there's anything, like I said, further that we haven't touched on but based on what we've talked about, has given you this idea or thought, I always want you to be able to lift that up. And so I do want to remind you all that if you would like to connect with me, there are certain ways to be able to do that. And so Instagram, for those who are watching me, you can see the Instagram handle, but for those who are listening, it is Santana Says. So it's Santana Says with 1 underscore after it. So Santana Says _ And then my email address is melly.santana88@gmail.com. And so melly.santana88. So again, either one of those, if whatever's easier for you and however you want to, or if you want to just leave any feedback that you have, I hope that we can continue to use all of these different topics to really challenge ourselves, right? And just how are we currently looking at things, and how can we look at them later? Because that's, like I said, that's the only way I want to be able to, do this thing called life. And I'm hoping that that's what you also want to do together as well. So as always, I appreciate you tuning in. Hope this gave you some food for thought, but also if it generated any new ideas for you, or there's any other way you want to be able to connect, I encourage you to do so. And I encourage you to tune in next Friday, because that's always our Feel Good Friday. That's our time to be able to explore all these great things, emotions, challenges, and figure them out together. So thank y'all.